Hello, this is the third part of my series on writing an expert advisor. This is a breakout expert advisor. I'm picking up from the end of part 2, and I'm not going to be going over the things that I've already done in part 2 or part 1. So if you haven't seen those, you might want to go back and look at part 1 and part 2. And I'll leave a link in the description to the earlier parts, or at least to a playlist that has those parts in it. So you might want to go and see that before you carry on with watching this part 3. What I'm going to move on to today is handling of the start and the end times. We've already covered how to do the inputs for the start and the end times for the time range. Now I'm going to cover how to manage whether we're inside or outside a range, given that those times are just times and not dates and times. So let's go into the code and we'll start to see how I do that. Now this is Metatrader 5. I'll open the editor. Here is the editor and the experts under Orchard, Breakout, Set and Forget, and here is part 2. I'll start with that. I'll simply make a copy and call it Breakout, Set and Forget 3, and then we'll move on and do the editing onto that. You may notice that the colors have changed since the last time, and the font's changed slightly. I'm just trying to make it a little easier for you to see on the screen. So if you think it was easier in the light colors, then leave a comment, and if you prefer the dark colors, leave a comment for that. To make a copy of this, I'm simply going to, I've got Breakout, Set and Forget open. I'll just do File, Save As. And then I'll need to refresh this to see it in there, and there is Breakout, Set and Forget 3. So I can close the navigator to give myself a little more space. Going past the inputs, I've already got some global variables here. I'm going to introduce 3 more. I want a global variable that is the start time, the end time, and one that tells me if I'm inside that time range. You remember that the strategy says to start at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and end at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so that's a complete day, but I have allowed already an input so that you can enter those times, and you may not specify a full day. You may make your time range shorter than that. So I'm going to convert those hours and minutes from the start and end time into just a time for the start and the end. So what I've done here, I've declared 2 variables, date time, start time, and end time, and then another that's a Boolean in range. So the in range is simple. That will simply be true if the current time is inside that time range. Start time and end time, they're declared as date times, and you can see I've initialized them here to 0, and you'll remember what I mentioned in the earlier video about initialization here in the global scope. Date times are actually just numbers. They are numbers with some special characteristics, but I'm able to assign simple integers to them, and that's why I'm able to initialize them with a 0 here. They are actually the number of seconds since the 1st of January 1970. But that's just creating the variables for the start time and the end time, and you'll see this is actually a full date time where all I have for the start and end are the hours and minutes. So what I'm going to be doing as the expert runs, I'm going to be converting the start time to a particular start time, which is the date and time at the beginning of whatever the current range is, and the end time will be the end date and time for the current range, and then as I move from one day to the next, I'll be moving those forward. So down here in the onInit function, I've validated all of the inputs, and I've already set up this one global variable for the risk. In here I want to set the initial, start and end times. Now maybe I'll just go to the whiteboard first to show you what I'm talking about. You might have heard me say this before, but I find the hardest part of writing code like this is actually deciding exactly what I want to do. Once I know that, putting that code into practice is not so difficult. So let me just draw a kind of rough timeline here. If we imagine that that is time, and I have days that start here. So these are my rough, extend that a little, days. And then I'm specifying a range. As I said, the strategy calls for a full day of range, but you might not want to run from 6 to 6. You might want to run from, say, 10 until 6, something like that. So assuming that this is the start point for the range and it goes through to, say, here, and then there'll be another range that begins here and goes through to here. Not very good drawing, but there we go. There are two possibilities when you first start the Expert Advisor. You may start here somewhere while the range is active, or you may start here where the range is inactive. Now, if the point where you start the Expert Advisor is here in the middle of the range, that's quite an easy situation, because all you have to do then is wait until the range ends, and then you're ready to start trading based on the size of the range. If you come in here, then you could say, well, I'm outside the range already, so I'll just go back and find the range before, decide what the high and low are for that, and I can trade on that. That's fine, but you must then consider what happens if the price has already moved outside that range. Do you simply trade where you are, or do you give up for the day? What happens if the price has gone outside the range and come back in? What if it's gone outside the range, come back in, and actually gone out of the other side? So there are a lot of things that can have happened in this little bit of time here between the end of the range and when you start the Expert Advisor. I am going to take a simple way out of it and say that if I enter the Expert Advisor, if when I first start it is in this gap between time ranges, then I'm simply going to wait for the next time range to start. So I'm going to wait for this one over here. Going back to my two situations, I may be entering here, or I may be entering here. So I'm either entering in a gap between ranges, or I'm entering in a range. What I want to do is find the appropriate end time and start time for the next time that I'll be coming out of a range. So this is obviously the next range. If I've entered here in the middle of the range, then this is the next range, and if I've entered here before the range starts, then this is still the next range. To find the start and end times for this, I'm simply going to begin with the time when I entered, which I can get from time current, which is the server time for now. I'm then going to find the nearest end time where the hours and minutes match the input hours and minutes that comes after this point. So I'm going to look for an end time from, if I've come in between ranges, I'm looking for this end time. And if I've come in the middle of the range, I'm also looking for this end time. Once I have that end time, I then need to find the start time before that. And since both end times are the same, regardless of where I come in, I then need to look backwards, and I'll find this start time. So I need to write code that will begin from any given point, find the nearest end time after that point, and then find the nearest start time before that point. Once I have this point and this point, I then have the next appropriate range, and I can decide if I'm currently inside the range based on whether my current time is between these two, or outside the range because my current time is not between these two. Okay, so now let's go back to the code and see how I'm going to do that. So first I have this variable now. Let me scroll up a little. And I'm getting that as time current. Time current is the server time. So that's coming from the broker. And if you followed my instructions from the first video, that time current will be synchronized such that midnight from the broker's point of view is the same as 5 p.m. New York time. And that's because that typically is the way markets run. They tend to end at 5 p.m. New York, and the next day starts at 5 p.m. New York. And if you're dealing with something like foreign exchange that has a 5-day week, the week ends at 5 p.m. Friday New York time, and the week starts at 5 p.m. Sunday New York time. Now, it might seem unusual if you're in the United States that the week starts on a Sunday, but that's actually when the Asian countries are beginning Monday morning, and so the markets begin on Monday morning in Asia. So now that I have the current time as now, I need to find the end time that comes after that. And I'm not going to write all that code here. I'm going to call a function, and then we'll go and write that function. So I'm going to write a function called setNextTime, which will look at this starting time. We'll come back to this in a moment. It will look at that starting time, this hour of the day, and this minute of the hour, and then it will find the next time that matches that hour and minute, beginning from here. Now, the reason I've used now plus 60, that's 60 seconds, and in my logic here, the end time is not included in the range. The start time is included, so if you're beginning at 0100 as the start time, that is the beginning of the range. If you're ending at 0100 for the end time, it actually ends at 0059, or at the end of that 0059 minute. So I'm adding 60 seconds here, just in case you have entered the expert exactly at the end minute. So now I'll go to the bottom of the code and write this setNextTime function. The function here is a datetime, or it returns a datetime variable called setNextTime. The inputs are now. Now I'm calling it now, but it's really whatever you're setting as the base time when you're calling this. And then the target hour and minute. So it will find the next hour and minute beginning from now. So the first thing I'm doing here, I'm declaring a variable of type MQL datetime. This is a structure type variable that's built into Metatrader, and I'm calling that now struct. And I'm using this because that structured time variable actually breaks out minutes, seconds, hours, day of the week, day of the year, date, so on. And then I'm using the time2struct function, and that takes two arguments. It takes the now, which is coming from here, and it puts the value of that when it's converted into the structure, which is the second argument. So once I have the current time, the now, in a structure, first thing I'm doing is setting the seconds to 0, because I'm not using seconds, and so I don't want to worry about whether something is before or after simply because the seconds don't match. So I'm just setting them to 0. Once I've done that, I'm converting this structure back to a date time, because now that date time has 0 seconds in it. So the struct to time function actually returns a date time variable and it takes the structure. So very briefly, I've come in with a date time which may include seconds. I've converted that to a structure with the time to struct. I've set the number of seconds to 0 and I've converted it back to a pure date time. So now that I've done that, I'm going to reuse the now struct. And what I'm doing is setting the hour of the now struct and the minute to the hour and minute that were passed in. Now there are two possibilities, I suppose. The hour and minute that are in the original now time could be after these or could be before. This will simply make sure that this struct has that hour and minute, because now what I'm going to do is try to determine if that time is before or after the now. So I convert that now struct back to another date time, and I'm calling that next time. So at this point, I've got a now time, which apart from removing the seconds is the actual time that we started with. And I've got a next time, which is on the same day, but with the hour and minute that were passed in here as arguments. And as I said, there are two possibilities. Next time may be before or after the now time. So I'm going to, if next time is before now, because I'm looking for the next time after now, I'm just going to move it forward by a day. So if next time is less than now, I'm going to add 86,400 seconds, which is the number of seconds in a day. I've put that inside a while loop. I'll come back to that a bit later, but for the time being, this simply means that if next time happened to be more than 1 day before the now time, then next time will keep moving forward until it is after now. It should only happen once here, but there is another condition that I'm going to come back to soon that will mean that the while makes more sense. And then I just return that next time. So that's the set next time function. Let me go back to the onInit function. So now I have end time, which I know is the earliest end time after or on or after now plus 60. So it's the earliest time after now. And as I said from the whiteboard, once I've got an end time, I want to find the start time that is the latest start time before this end time. So that's kind of the reverse of the set next time. So not surprisingly, the function looks very similar. It's called setPrevTime. And here is the beginning time that I have, the end time. And I'm passing in the start hour and the start minute. And this function is very similar. So what I'm going to do is go to the end and I'll simply copy the setNextTime function and make a couple of changes to that. So I've made the copy. You can see I have 2 of them here. I'll change next time to set prev time. The arguments are still now, hour, and minute. I'm still converting the now into a structure. I'm still setting the seconds to 0, and that gives me the now time without seconds. I'm still setting the now structure hour and minute to the hour and minute that were passed in. That's all the same. I'll change this variable name because, so prev time equals struct to time now struct. And all that happens here is that while prev time, instead of being less than now time, while that is greater than or equal to now time. And instead of prev time plus equals, becomes minus equals. So just stepping backwards. And then I can return prev time. So almost identical to the set next time, and if I wanted to, I could have made a single function that had an argument that said whether I'm going forward or backwards, but I just think this is easier to read. If you want to turn this into a single function that either goes forward or backwards, then that's an exercise for you. So at the end of these two statements, I have the end time that is the nearest end time after now. I have the start time that is the nearest start time before that end time. All I need to do now is set whether I'm currently inside the range. So I already have now, which is the time current. If the start time is less than or equal to now, and the end time is greater than now, then I'm inside a range. Now, given the way I've set these up, I'm either going to be inside a range or I'm going to be before a range when I start the expert advisor. So I'm either going to be between this end time and start time, and in that case, start time is less than or equal to now, and end time is greater than now, or I'm going to be before the start time, and in that case this part of the statement is false. And so that sets up my initial inside the range. Now that I've got this set next time and set prev time, it makes it very easy in the rest of the expert to know whether I'm inside the range, and when I do exit a range, to deal with that and place trades, and then to simply move the range forward by a day. There is one more thing though that I haven't shown, and that's why I have this while statement. Let me go back to the whiteboard. So I've demonstrated how I can enter the expert advisor here in between time ranges or here in the middle of the range, and I'll be able to find this time range. That's fine. But let me just erase this range. But let's assume that I came into the expert advisor here and that this day is Saturday and this day is Sunday and the markets are closed. So let me extend my timeline. So that's Monday. If I came into the expert advisor here with the code that I have currently, it will find the nearest end time, which will just happen to be around there, and the start time before that, which will be here. So it will do its usual part. It will skip forward to the nearest end time and then skip backwards from there to the start time. But this end time is on a non-business day. What I really want is to find this end time on Monday morning. So I need to deal with cases where the end time or even the start time are on non-business days. Because if I had jumped into the range here, for example, I would find the next end time there, and then it would look for the start time, and I don't want to find a start time here, I want to find a start time here. So let's go back to the code and I'll show you how we can do that. I said that I'd put this inside a while statement for a reason. This statement, this is in the set next time, will skip forward by one day, and then next time will be after or equal to now time. So I'm just going to add another condition here, or not is trading day. This is another custom function that I'm about to write, but it will simply return true or false if this time is on a trading day. So if we assume we first start this and next time is less than now time, and now happens to be Friday. So next time is less than now, we'll add 86,400 to that. It will be a time on Saturday. Goes back to the while statement. Next time is now greater than now time, so that's fine. But because this is a Saturday, is trading day for that next time will return false. So it will loop through again, add 86,400, come and do the test again, is trading day Sunday, come back, add 86,400, and now next time is Monday, which is greater than now time, and it is a trading day, so we exit the while loop. So I just need to add that is trading day function. And I need to do the same thing. I'll just copy this code. I need to do the same thing here in the set prev time. There's no difference in the code except that I'm using a different variable here, which is the prev time variable, because I'm still saying if now is a Monday, I find the previous time, which is on Sunday. This is going to be false. Takes 86,400 away from that. That's Saturday, that's false, and then comes back until it's Friday. So all that's left is to create this is trading day function. Just as before, I've created an MQL date time, which is the time structure, and I'm converting the time from this argument into that structure with the time to struct. I need two date time variables. I'm just calling them from time and to time. I don't actually use them for anything, but I need them for the call to the next function. Symbol info session trade returns a Boolean. You pass in the symbol because each symbol can have different trading session times. A day of the week because each day of the week can have different session times, and that's why I have the time structure. So time struct dot day of week returns a day of the week from that time. This is the session number. So if you actually look at the properties of various symbols, some of them have more than one session for the day. Most will simply begin shortly after midnight and end shortly before midnight, and that time just over midnight is when brokers do some accounting and get ready for the next day. But some symbols will have gaps in the middle of the day because certain markets have particular reasons for that gap. So there may be more than one session for the day. And the sessions are numbered from 0, and there can be any number. There is no limit to the number of sessions, but in practice there usually aren't more than 2 to 3. And as I said, most foreign exchanges are going to have one session for the day. They'll begin shortly after midnight and end shortly before midnight. I'm looking for session 0, and what this function will do is put the start time for the session into the from time variable and the end time into the to time variable. Okay, I said I don't need them, and I don't. I just had to put them here as arguments to this function because the return argument from this function tells me as a Boolean if this session exists. So I'm looking for session 0, which must be the first session for the day. If that session doesn't exist, it means there are no sessions for this day. Therefore, this is a non-trading day. So all I have to do is return the response from that symbol info session trade. I don't need the from time and the to time. They're just arguments that I have to pass into the function. But I do want to know if session 0 was found. And if session 0 is not found, this will return false. So that means it's a non-trading day. And that's my isTradingDay function. Let me just compile. No errors there. Now I think we'll stop there. I've covered quite a bit. The important parts here are my logic in terms of when I'm starting the expert advisor, whether I'm inside the range or outside the range, and how I handle that. And I've taken the simple approach and said, if I'm outside a range, I'm just going to wait for the next range. If I'm inside a range, then all I'm doing is waiting for that range to end, and then trading can begin. I've shown how I handle looking for the end of that range and the beginning of the range. I have seen other people take different approaches. I like this approach because it also allows me to deal with this trading day quite easily. And in the rest of the code, when we get to writing that, you'll see that as soon as a range ends, I'm able to simply call set next time for the end time, set previous time for the start time, and I just keep moving my ranges forward. And these ranges will now cover entire weekends if the start time is on Friday and the end time is the next business day. And I've also introduced you to this isTradingDay, which is something that many people completely forget when they're looking at times that span midnight. I think that's enough for today. Next time, I think we'll actually get into some code inside the OnTick, and we might even be able to finish writing the expert advisor, although I don't think we'll have a chance to get onto the testing and the optimization in the next session. But I am going to continue these until we get to the end and we've done the optimization and the testing, and you have a fully working expert advisor. Hope it's been useful for you. If it has, click the like button, and if you want to see more videos from us, then click subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified when we release new videos. So until the next time, thank you for watching.